Last year, on a Friday afternoon after work, I listened to these three John Denver albums back to back for the first time to unwind during an Xbox 360 gaming session. The problem was that I never returned to them, and apart from a couple of the songs on Farewell Andromeda, after all this time, I can't remember any of those songs now. Not long after this, I changed my approach to listening to albums, and that made a big difference. It's helped me absorb my music more deeply, have a far more deeper experience with this, and ultimately build a much deeper connection with albums that have stayed with me through 2025 and also going into 2026. So if you are someone who falls into the trap of flitting between albums without absorbing too much, or indeed you are new to music collecting, the experience of listening to complete albums rather than just singles or greatest hits sets, or you're just simply curious about my experience, well, stay with me as I tell all. There's no magic trick though to all of this, no hypnotic brain switch that makes you remember the music you listen to, enjoy it more, revisit it. It's a rather simple technique that I feel like this human world is losing in an engagement, dopamine-driven world with quick hits and instant gratification everywhere. The key word is patience. Listening again, 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 and again, as many times as you feel necessary to absorb the music that you're listening to. I think patience is probably becoming a valuable asset these days. Maybe why the art of the album, that 45-minute, 35 minutes, 60 minutes, 75 minute, even 90-minute album could be said to be slowly disappearing from our lives. But it's not disappearing from mine anytime soon. And the key switch to all of this was listening to the discography of Bruce Springsteen. To start with, I picked up his Nebraska album and I went from there. But the key difference between previously is that I didn't just listen to this once and go to something else. I stayed with it. I played and played and played it again. Far from just listening to it once. I played it 4 or 5 times, back to back, to really get to know each of these songs on the back cover. And I found that after listening to a few of Bruce Springsteen's albums, that a kind of acid test started to emerge. Could I look at the track list? Could I look at every track on the back of Nebraska and recognise how that song goes? After 9 months, yes, of course I can, after listening to this June last year. But after 4 or 5 days, I knew how every single one of them went. Not as an exam, a test, revision for an upcoming exam, but as a sign that I'd actually spent time with the album and digested it. Because what's the point of hearing something once and then just discarding it? Listening to the Nebraska, putting it on the side, and never listening to it again. What's the point of that? Even music that you don't like, at least for me, can grow on you, I think, with time and familiarity. That whole thing of music being on the radio, that the first time you hear it, you hate it, but actually after listening to it more and more, you hate it more possibly, or you actually come round to it and think, yeah, this is actually decent. And I think the same possibly happens with an album. The old adage that even music you don't like is music that if you're listening to it enough, it might be on the radio, or in the public consciousness, or in your mind regularly, you actually might just come round to it. It took me 6 months, the second half of last year, to listen to Bruce Springsteen's discography. A long time, yes. A large investment, yes. Did I listen to anything else in that time? Of course I did. I didn't just exclusively listen to Bruce Springsteen's music without any other music in my life. That would have been impossible. But away from listening to those individual, in-depth album listens, I'd go back to previous albums, ones that I'd heard from Bruce before, the earworms from those songs, my favourite song on the album that I was listening to at that time, and go and listen to those outside of the album experience. I'm not saying that I was just listening to albums and my mind was completely shielded from anything else. Far from it. I have the inkling to go and listen to those songs again, the favourite songs from the album, the ones from the previous albums that I'd really enjoyed. And what I found is that the latter half of 2025 really became Bruce Springsteen time. 2025 really became my Bruce Springsteen year. Now let's flick this back to the start, to those John Denver albums. Compare my Bruce Springsteen experience to the John Denver experience. Not particularly remembering anything. Not going back to the songs. What did I gain from that experience? Not much at all. Maybe from some background noise, the same impact as a radio might have. Let's switch that to the Bruce Springsteen experience. What did I gain from that? A colossal amount. I went from someone who only knew Bruce Springsteen's greatest hits to becoming a fan of a lot of his albums and finding music that impacted me on a deeply personal level. You only have to see The River, Nebraska, and potentially The Rising for that. Not that I wish to focus on Nebraska too much, because there is plenty to enjoy in Bruce's catalogue, but that album isn't one that you can listen to just once and get something from it. Far from it, actually. It needs time, and music often benefits from coming at it with different moods, different environments, different frustrations of life, different outcomes of what's going on. The day of the week might even change things. And I found, particularly with Bruce's music and going forward, that bringing something new to the musical listening experience can often find you having a different experience and a different outcome from it. How do you listen to an album side to side, back to back, again and again without the boredom, the monotony? Well, ultimately I'd say if you're asking that, I could say that if you're not enjoying your music, then what's the point? I might have said that myself last year, possibly. But often it is, as I alluded to, the music that you listen to for the first time and you don't connect with on the first occasion. I found that a lot throughout my album listening experience. Even before listening to Bruce, my favourite album of all time, Pink Floyd The Wall. Did I like that at first? No. But it's now my favourite album of all time. It is those albums that you listen to on first listen, don't get into it immediately, but grow into it, that personally I find the most rewarding. Going back to Bruce Springsteen again, The River. It's a double album, this. So there's 20 songs. Took me twice as long to listen to. Inevitably, twice as long as a single album. And twice, maybe 3 times as long to really digest this. And I wasn't too fond at first. But my view grew that this was a good single album within a double album. And then I really started liking other things, to now really liking at least 3/4, if not more, of what was on The River. It's that growth, isn't it? It's that personal growth, that personal experience that I've had when listening to the album, having the experience, not just putting that John Denver album on and turning it off again and not really remembering and moving on to the next thing immediately. No, it's staying with that album, learning to enjoy it, that I found a real experience and the best way to digest an album. My main ally during this period was an iPod Touch. I've had an iPod Classic for most of my life, and the majority of my life, and that's given me so many good musical experiences. But that device has got all of my music on, all the music you can fit in your pocket, right? I think was that the iPod's slogan when it came out, and that is great. And the same goes to streaming, doesn't it? But what I did was created an inconvenience here. The difference was that I only had one album on this at a time. With an iPod Classic, a streaming service like Spotify, it's just too easy to switch off and move to another song, another album. And the inconvenience of having only one album on this at a time meant that I couldn't do that. I'd listen to these Bruce Springsteen albums on the way to and from work each day, and the inconvenience of this device not actually being connected to the car, just an auxiliary cable, meant that I couldn't skip a track without actually pulling over and engaging with the device. And particularly being on the motorway at 60, 70 miles an hour most of the time, I wasn't really inclined to do that. And typically I'd spend a week on each one, 4 or more listens, until I really felt I'd absorbed the album. And if I felt I needed more, I'd keep listening. It was actually challenging sometimes to move away from that one album. How incredible's that I went from going, right, I'll listen to this, I've got to listen to this, this and this, to actually, no, I want to listen to this again. Even a longer album, like Human Touch from Bruce Springsteen, an album that I really, really enjoyed. And I didn't really want to move away from. That shift between June last year and I think November when I listened to that, that's a massive shift, isn't it? The next album, though, always felt exciting. I was leaving the old one away, having a little bit of a change, thinking, oh, is it gonna be good? Is it not gonna be good? Not trying to read reviews too much before going into those albums, so I had a complete fresh understanding of what was going on. I could create my own opinions, but I couldn't have that instant gratification of, right, I've listened to the one album, let's move on to the next. No, I'd go to bed at night, maybe on a Sunday evening after a week of listening to one album, interested in what was to come the following morning. And as I got into my car to start a new week, a new experience with a new album would begin. You could do this yourself on your daily commute, in the car, on a train, on your bike, even walking to and from your place and work. And in fact, even on a Sunday afternoon stroll through your local town, through the forest, possibly, maybe even on the beach. Any environment that feels nourishing to digest a body of work from an artist, even if it's just sat in your chair with the liner notes of the vinyl, embracing the album. Personally, that's something that on a first listen I find difficult to do, just to listen to the music. But whatever works for you. Before this key change, I just felt pressure to know everything, especially me running a music channel. If I talked about an artist, I felt like I had to know everything by them, their entire catalogue, every song, every nuance, every little factoid. But if you know everything, where's the excitement of that discovery? That first listen, that moment of surprise is something that you just cannot recreate. And I'd love to go back to listening to some of these albums, these songs for the first time, and just really embracing that guitar lick, that sudden change of tempo, being really excited by it. And I still, months on, remember listening to some of these Bruce songs for the first time and the experience, the excitement that they brought to me. If I was talking about Judas Priest, then I must know every song, every album by Judas Priest. After all, pretty much everything is in this box set. But if you know everything by the Priest, then what's the fun of listening to a new album to you, of theirs? Sure, listening to your old favourites is fun. I love Stained Glass by Judas Priest, Sin After Sin, and I do that a lot too. I go back to my old favourites. I think we all do. But that just cannot beat listening to an album for the first time, gaining a new experience, growing in this world. I just felt a pressure before this to have to listen to everything, despite having a to listen to list of all those CDs back there, the vinyl albums that just came crawling out of every crevice in my bedroom, songs to digest quickly, box sets that I needed to get into, facts about songs and albums that just needed to be remembered. I listened to this box set a few years back from Angel's Casablanca years. It's got 5 albums and a live album. Again, I only elected to play these albums once. And though I picked up a few songs from listening to this, I don't recognise many of the song titles now. A little bit of everything doesn't achieve anything, or very little. Whereas a lot of one album, a few albums, a discography maybe over time, I feel, achieves a lot. I'm still not perfect. I'm not a music guru. I'm not going to say that I am that at all. I pivot. We're all humans. We all change, don't we? And what I've found the best way to digest an album in 2025, I might say that when we get to 2027, no, I don't agree with that anymore. But what I do now that I didn't do intentionally beforehand is to give an album a chance to breathe, a chance to prove itself to me. Much as the artist making it spent lots of time perfecting it, for me to invest that time into playing it. I have Mark Knopfler's first 5 studio albums in a box set, and I'm excited to listen to them all. But I've spent the last 2 weeks revisiting, getting to enjoy the first album, Golden Heart. And I say again because it's another album that I decided to listen to once or twice previously, and I didn't get much out of it. I even did a review when I first listened to it for the first time saying, it's a mixed bag. But now I've really got to listen to all of the songs individually as a whole piece of the album, and going back to individual songs again like Bruce after listening to it. Songs that I wouldn't have considered previously. Nobody's Got the Gun, I'm the Fool, Are We in Trouble Now? Going back to listen to those things, I really want to listen to those as individual pieces. So that mixed bag comment, I don't think that could be more wrong listening now. I hope I'll get to the other albums, but in good time. What's the rush? Think of being back in the 1970s, the 1980s, a time that I wasn't part of, but anecdotally I hear from other YouTubers that they might have only had enough pocket money, enough of that allowance, enough disposable income from working for the week, only to buy one album. You had no choice. You either spent that time with that investment you've made, or you don't end up listening to anything. Create that inconvenience, whatever it might be that works for you in your life, that you have to spend time with one album. You haven't got the choice to flit on something new if you don't like it after 3 or 4 songs. And I think there's value in recreating that limitation that was really there in the 70s and 80s and possibly might not be there now. But create that inconvenience for yourself once again. It might be difficult at first, and if you really don't enjoy, then don't persist. Because music, the album as an art form, is one to be enjoyed, one to be nourished, one to really enjoy. Don't just keep painfully listening to an album that you don't enjoy, but at the same time, give it a little bit of time. Let your subconscious reflect on those songs after your first listen. And you might find yourself singing to yourself that song again, thinking, I like that. Or, I'd like to listen to that again, wanting to come back to them. Who knows? Just give it a try. So the message is really, really simple. Listen, 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 listen again. Listen as many times as you need. And let me know down below what you're listening to at the moment. For me, it's Mark Knopfler's Golden Heart.